So you're looking for something special to make for Valentine's Day. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make chicken parmesan, the perfect Valentine's Day dinner for you and your boo. Keep watching. If we're just meeting, I'm Denise Jordan, and I teach traditional homemaking for today's woman. So if you want to learn more about making and keeping a home, hit that subscribe button and double tap that little bell icon so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Okay, let's make some chicken parmesan. My husband loves chicken parmesan, but I don't make it often. I usually save it for special occasions. So when I do, he really appreciates it. So now let me show you what we'll need to make that dish. So the first thing I'm going to do is to turn these chicken breasts into chicken cutlets. So that means that I'm going to put them on this cutting board and I'm going to cut them in half. So that means I'm going to cut them in half this way. So I have two relatively thin slices, and then I'm going to pound them flat after I wrap them in some saran wrap. So let's do that. And one thing that I will tell you is that the chicken breasts are just slightly frozen. They're not completely thawed. That just makes them hold together a little bit easier so that when I cut them, I don't have any trouble getting them cut in half. And you come up with two thin little slices. I got my husband's fillet knife out. It's working perfectly for this. So now I've got them covered with plastic wrap, and now I'm going to pound them. And I do have a mallet, but I think I used it out in the garage one time, and now I don't know where it is. And you want to pound them until they're about a ½ inch thickness. All four cutlets about ½ inch all the way through. So these are done. Look how nice and thin this is. Okay, so now we're going to place these cutlets on this freezer paper, pat it dry with a paper towel, and then season it with salt and pepper. So we'll just pat it dry with a paper towel. Both sides. And you pat it dry so that your seasonings will stick. And then I'll just add a little salt and pepper. And then for my young homekeepers out there, I've got my salt and pepper in a little dish like this. So once I'm done with this meal or with this prep, I will discard this salt and pepper. So here's the pepper. That way you're not spreading poultry juice anywhere. I know people used to bread chicken or bread fish, and they would save the flour mixture that they breaded it with in the refrigerator in a bag. But you don't do that, you discard it. So now I'll set this aside and I'll get the breading mixture ready. So I'm whisking my 1 egg and my tablespoon of flour in this shallow dish. And I'm just going to whisk it until it's smooth. Try to get all the lumps out that I can. So it's starting to look pretty good, pretty smooth. All right, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to get some of these spices together. So now I'm going to add my Parmesan cheese here to this shallow dish. My panko breadcrumbs. 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. And a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And I'll mix that together. Now an easier way to mix this, if you like, would be to dump all these spices, the cheese, the breadcrumbs, and the garlic powder and the oregano in a little brown bag, shake it up, and then pour it in the dish. That would make it a lot easier. And then we're going to press the chicken cutlets into this mixture after we first give them a dip in the egg mixture. Okay, so first we will dip the cutlet into the egg mixture, and then we will press it into the cheese mixture. And now we'll set it aside on a large dish. Okay, here's the last one, and we barely have any egg mixture left. And just enough panko, Parmesan, and spice mixture. So now I am ready to fry these chicken cutlets. So I'm going to add 1/3 cup of vegetable oil to this hot pot. And it's on medium-high heat. And I'm just going to put in 2 cutlets at a time. And I'm going to cook them until they're crispy, about 2 minutes on each side. And then I'll take them out, and then I'll put the other 2 in. And I've got a plate over here lined with a paper towel, all ready to receive the cutlets once I cook them. And then they're going to go into the broiler. So this is what makes them a little bit quicker than your usual chicken parmesan. You fry them until they're crispy, about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. And then you put them in the broiler. And the nice thing about the cheeses that we have is that they melt up nicely once they're in the broiler. Look at that. Golden brown. Does that not look amazing? My husband is going to love this meal. Now, just to share a little bit of difference between us, I love to eat out, and he loves to eat in. So whereas he'll always take me out to dinner for Valentine's Day, I'll try to make something special for him at home. Last year, I made him lobster mac and cheese, and I will link the video where I made the mac and cheese below. And then one other year I made him shrimp and grits. We have been to Georgia to visit some family, and we went out to eat at a restaurant and they served shrimp and grits, and oh my goodness, it was delicious. So I thought, I'm gonna make that for the hubby for Valentine's Day. So I'll link that video below too, just in case you're interested in checking it out. Get these out. So now we're going to put the cutlets on this baking sheet, and you want to make sure it's a baking sheet with a lip. Now I'm going to mix my two cheeses left, my mozzarella cheese and my Valentine cheese. So once I get this cheese all mixed up, I'll sprinkle it over the cutlets. And then it's going to melt beautifully on the cutlets in the broiler. And then we'll broil it for 2 to 4 minutes, just until the cheese has started to melt and started to brown. We don't want to burn it up, but we do want the cheese to start to brown so it has that chicken parmesan texture and look. And then I've got the oven rack set for it to be about 4 inches from the heating element. So now we can sprinkle this cheese on top of the cutlets. We want to try to cover as much of the chicken cutlet as possible. And this meal actually serves 4, so we'll have some leftovers. Unless, of course, the hubby wants seconds. So now we will put these cutlets in the oven on the broiler rack. Like I said, about 4 inches from the top of the heating element. Okay, so now I've got my cutlets in the broiler. They're going to broil for 2 to 4 minutes until that cheese starts to melt and turn just slightly golden brown, but not burned. So, then we'll have this meal on the table in a minute. And it looks like they are ready to come out. Oh my goodness. Look at those. I think if I had waited any longer to get those out of there, they might have been a little bit crispier and browner than I wanted. But now, let's get them off of the tray and onto a dish. And there's my timer. That would have been way too long. Now here they are, fresh from the broiler. My, oh my, don't they look great. So now I'm going to make the chunky tomato sauce that you always see with chicken parmesan. So I'm going to take a tablespoon of olive oil. And put it in this large saucepan. And the pot was already just a tad bit hot. And I'm going to add 1 onion finely chopped. And I chopped this onion up off screen. I think you've seen me chop enough onions. So And then I'll cook this onion until it's translucent, and then I will add 3 cloves of minced garlic before I put in the tomato products. Oh, and of course a little salt and pepper. And oregano. I'll put in my teaspoon of salt on top of that onion and give it a stir. It's starting to smell pretty aromatic, and the onions are turning translucent. So let's add my garlic. And let those just cook together. One-quarter teaspoon of oregano and 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, I should say, crushed red pepper flakes. Now I'm going to cook this until it's aromatic. So it's really starting to smell aromatic, really fragrant. So now we will add a 14-ounce can of crushed red pepper. And then a 28-ounce can of Petite diced tomatoes. And I always buy red gold. I used to buy Hunt's. And then one of my girlfriends, her husband works at Red Gold. And so I just started buying red gold to help support their family. And I've been very pleased with the products. So I'm going to let this cook now until it cooks down. This is going to be delicious. A really nice chunky tomato sauce to put on top of the chicken parmesan. And I am going to serve our chicken parmesan with garlic mashed potatoes. Now, you can serve yours with pasta if you like, and certainly there's plenty of tomato sauce here. There'll be about 4 cups of this chunky tomato sauce. So we may have it with pasta another day, but tonight we're going to have garlic mashed potatoes. I like garlic mashed potatoes. And then probably something simple like green beans on the side. And then for dessert, we're going to have chocolate mousse. So be sure to come back and check out my chocolate mousse video and my garlic mashed potatoes. So I'm going to let this cook for about 15, maybe 20 minutes until it cooks down a little bit, let it thicken up. We're going to end up with about 4 cups of chunky tomato sauce. Good. And don't hesitate to add that teaspoon of salt to their tomato sauce because you do need the salt. You do want to have that nice flavor. Okay, so there's the timer. I've had this cooking for about 15 minutes and it's certainly reduced down. It's a lot thicker than what it was, as you can see. So now I'm ready to spoon some over my chicken cutlets and get this meal on the table. So let's do that. Okay, so now I am ready to put this sauce on top of the cutlets. And I will say I have already tasted it and it's delicious. Absolutely delicious. And this sauce will be great with mashed potatoes or any kind of pasta. And then I picked up some fresh basil in the deli, well, in the produce section at Kroger, and shredded it up. And I'll just garnish this with just a little bit of fresh basil that's been shredded. And look how pretty this is. Is this not a beautiful dinner for a Valentine's Day for 2? The hubby and I are going to really enjoy it, and he's going to love it because he's getting to eat in. Okay, now let's give this a taste. I'm going to try to just get a little corner off of this cutlet because this is for dinner after all. So it's nice and tender. Oh yeah. It's absolutely delicious. Delicious. And the tomato sauce, that chunky tomato sauce, has just the right amount of spice in it, and just the right amount of salt and oregano and tomato flavor, and it melds so good with the chicken parmesan. It's absolutely amazing. Can't wait to get it on some mashed potatoes, or maybe even another day to try it on some pasta. Now, if you like this video, be sure and check out my lobster mac and cheese, another recipe perfect for Valentine's Day, or my shrimp and grits, which I made for the hubby and I for a Valentine's Day brunch. And if you're interested in cutting your grocery bill in half, let me invite you to jump in on my pantry challenge. This is where I invite you to eat from your pantry, your fridge, and your freezer, where you use up the food that you've already got, and you don't let anything go to waste because you're rotating those freezer items forward, getting them used up, using up your produce, and that kind of thing, and saving money while you're at it. So I will link the invitation video below so that you can check that out as well. And just so you know, I've raised 3 children and I've managed a home for more than 45 years. So if you want to learn more about making and keeping a home, subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of the TNT community. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying goodbye. I will see you next time. Now, to my young homekeepers out there, let me encourage you to try this recipe. I hope you saw how really easy it was. The hardest thing was keeping an eye on the cutlets while they were in the broiler, and that was just a matter of staying close by the stove and looking in on them. So don't hesitate to give it a try. As you begin to expand your cooking repertoire, try some new things, and certainly try this one. And if you don't want to make this for Valentine's Day dinner for 2, it's certainly well worth making for a Sunday dinner. So don't hesitate to give it a try. It is actually as easy as it looks.